Welcome to Kids Health Revolution Radio with Deborah Morgan. On our show, we'll discuss natural and alternative health approaches to help children who have chronic health concerns. You'll hear from professional health experts and fellow parents who have used these proven methods to improve the health of their children, and you can too. If you have questions or topics you would like covered on the show, please send an email to Deborah@kidshealthrevolution.com. And now, here's Deborah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Kids Health Revolution Radio. We are back again with more information, inspiration, and of course, the tools that you need so that you can start taking action and begin taking your child's health back. And we have an absolutely jam-packed show today. We're talking about the incredibly powerful GAPS diet, which, if you don't know, if you haven't heard of this before, stands for the Gut and Psychology Syndrome. And I've done a show on this before, but today I'm really thrilled to be with none other than Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride herself. And Dr. Natasha is definitely a voice in this alternative and holistic health world that I very much trust. And I took the GAPS training with Dr. Natasha in 2014. And so I've witnessed the power of this protocol with my own son and now with some of my clients that I've helped to guide through the diet. So just in case you don't know about this incredible woman, let me give you her formal bio, and then we're going to jump on the line with her. I know you guys sent me a lot of different questions that you have. We're going to talk a bit in general about the GAPS diet, and then we'll see if we can get Dr. Natasha to dive in and give us some answers to the questions. So, Dr. Campbell-McBride graduated with honors as a medical doctor in 1984 from the Bashkir Medical University in Russia, and then she followed that up with a postgraduate degree in neurology. So she practiced for 5 years as a neurologist and 3 years as a neurosurgeon, and started a family and then moved to the UK. And shortly after her son was diagnosed with autism, and that prompted her to go into a pretty intensive study into the causes and treatments of autism. And it was during that time that she developed her theories on the relationship between neurological disorders and nutrition. And so she completed a second postgraduate degree in human nutrition at the Sheffield University in the UK. And she practices in the UK as a nutritionist, not as a medical doctor. But having treated her son off of the autistic spectrum, Dr. Campbell-McBride has returned to practice in 2000 and runs the Cambridge Nutrition Clinic. And as a nutritionist, has specialized in using nutritional protocols as a treatment and has become recognized as one of the world's leading experts in treating children and adults with learning disabilities and other mental disorders, as well as children and adults with digestive and immune disorders. She's the author of the well-known Gut and Psychology Syndrome book, A Natural Treatment of Autism, ADHD, Dyslexia, Dyspraxia, Depression, and Schizophrenia, and as well as the author of the book, Put Your Heart in Your Mouth, What Really Is Heart Disease and What We Can Do to Prevent and Even Reverse It, and is presently working on, and I'm very excited about, the Gut and Physiology Syndrome book, which will be highly anticipated, I'm sure, by many of us. So before we jump, first of all, welcome to the show, Dr. Natasha.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Awesome. So, Dr. Natasha, before we jump right into the meat and potatoes of everything, I always ask my guests to share a little bit, if they don't mind, about their personal story. So a little bit about your personal journey, into this world of finding nutrition as a way to help your son, and how that went for you.
I'm a mainstream doctor, so I had a mainstream training, and of course we are not trained in nutrition. In the mainstream school, we receive maybe one lecture or two about basics, and that's all we know. And when I was working as a neurologist back in Russia, I've noticed that pretty much all of my chronic neurological patients had digestive problems, quite severe very often, very severe. Many patients with multiple sclerosis, various neuropathies, various other amyotrophic lateral sclerosis and other problems, had serious digestive disorders. And of course, in the mainstream system, doctors are specialized. Neurologists don't look at the digestive system. They call a gastroenterologist to come and have a look. A gastroenterologist looks and then prescribes something and walks away. And that prescription is followed. And never a connection is made between the digestive system and the nervous system or any other system in the body. And yet human body is one entity. It functions as one. Every organ, every system, every cell is connected to each other, and they talk to each other, communicate with each other, and affect each other. So it didn't make much sense to me, I remember, at that time. And then when my firstborn was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3, that threw me into a huge learning curve. Very quickly I realized that my own profession had absolutely nothing to offer my beautiful son. So I learned everything I could learn. I read every book I could find. I went to conferences. And I did another postgraduate degree in human nutrition in Sheffield University in the UK. And the result of all this study is the development of the GAPS nutritional protocol, gut and psychology syndrome. It's based on the knowledge that I already had as a medical doctor trained in the former Soviet Union. That was a very different training than what doctors go through in the West. We had a lot of traditional wisdom put into our training, and plus what I've learned later on. And also I come from a traditional society. A lot of the wisdom was imparted to me by my grandmother, who was a healer in her village, in her local village, and the general traditional wisdom of the Russian nation that people still maintained, certainly in my childhood, and maintaining now. So my son has recovered fully, and as I was doing, he's a young man now leading a normal life. He's just graduated from university, so he's leading a perfectly normal life. Yeah, he's a beautiful young man, very intelligent. And as I was doing this, and I was starting to get results with my own child, and of course, as you know, families of autistic children talk to each other. They share their experiences, they help each other, they support each other. So other families got interested in what I was doing. So that way my clinic grew very quickly. I got busy very, very quickly. I started helping children all over Britain. And as people started talking, people started calling me from abroad. And then one of the mothers, after a long consultation with her and her autistic son, looked at me sideways and said, "Why haven't you written a book yet?" And that thought never crossed my mind. So I thought, really, why haven't I read a book? Why haven't I put all these thoughts into a book? So I've written a book, and that was my first. And I never expected this knowledge to spread so quickly around the world. It obviously demonstrates that GAPS is such a big problem. Yeah. And it is a growing problem all over the world. It's growing very rapidly. The need for this information is enormous already all over the world, and this need is growing all the time. So GAPS has become a movement all over the world. More than 1 million people following it all over the world now. We have fantastic results with children and adults with all sorts of illnesses. And I have been receiving letters from people, because GAPS protocol has been around now for about 20 years. And I have been receiving letters from all over the world, from people who never had any consultations with me. They just bought the book. The book is a self-help book. They followed the recommendations in the book, and they got results. And these letters were so powerful, so moving, that I asked the permission from these people and published these stories as a book. We called it GAPS Stories. So these are basically testimonies. There are 52 testimonies there, half from families with recovered children and half from adults. And the number of conditions that people have recovered from are absolutely staggering there. From childhood disabilities, learning disabilities, such as autism and hyperactivity and attention deficit disorder and dyslexia, dyspraxia, schizophrenia, anorexia, other mental illnesses, to multiple sclerosis, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, allergies, asthma, eczema, neuropathies, my neurological conditions now being really cured and being helped. When I was a neurologist, all we could do is just make these people a bit more comfortable with our symptomatic drugs. That's all we could do, really. It was considered to be incurable. These people are being cured, which is revolutionary.
Absolutely.
And narcolepsy, and alcoholism, and addictions and all sorts of disorders people have recovered from. And many of these wonderful people actually put their contact details into this book. They're happy to be contacted by people who are going through the same experience, the same trouble. They're happy to share their knowledge and happy to help others.
Which is
So
so
I
wonderful.
recommend that book very much. Yeah, it's called Gap Stories. You can get it on online. You can get it from many distributors, and it'll give you inspiration. It'll give you hope. And also, if you are stuck on some issue in your particular problem, you might actually want to contact these people, and they will just give you the answer because they've been through it and they found the answer to those particular issues. Yeah.
It's a real community, right?
It's a real community. GAPS is a real community. There are many online discussion groups where mothers and other people share their experiences and help each other. It's absolutely wonderful. They're wonderful people.
I agree, and I love the book with the stories. It is very empowering and, as you say, inspirational. And I think that's one thing that a lot of parents need, is that feeling of hope and empowerment, and that there is something that we can do just as parents, right, to help our kids. And that's what I'm all about with this show too. Yeah, love it.
Absolutely. Gut and psychology syndrome gives the power firmly back into the hands of the parents and the patients. It takes the power away from the doctors or anybody else and gives it back to you. Because at the end of the day, it is your own body or the body of your child that is healing itself. Nobody else in the world can heal you. Doctors don't heal anyone. It's your own body that is healing itself. And your body needs tools in order to heal itself. And it needs the power to be held firmly in its own hands, not given away to somebody else. Because as soon as you give your power away to somebody else, you can't heal, you can't recover, because you're not in charge of your healing process. So once you give the power back to your own body to heal itself and listen to it and give it all the tools necessary, and of course these are natural, Mother Nature's tools, because Mother Nature took a very long time to design human body. It is the most miraculous, the best, and the top of the creation on this planet. It is the most amazing creation. All the healing programs, all the ability to restore itself is programmed into our bodies. Your own body can heal itself. You just have to stop interfering in that process and stop damaging your body and give it the tools.
Right on. And, this is something that I speak a lot to parents and new clients about. Is oftentimes when people come to me, they've really been searching for sort of this Western medicine model where somebody else is going to fix the problem. Like some doctor is going to have some sort of herbal remedy or some sort of medication or some kind of pill or some kind of little quick fix. And we're constantly searching outside of ourselves for the solution, even for our children, when really the solution lays with us, right?
Absolutely. The solution lies within your own body. Your own body knows what it's doing at every moment. Your immune system is never misguided. It knows what it's doing. It's just dealing with a set of damaging elements from the environment, and it responds to those damaging elements accordingly. You just have to remove the damaging elements and give the body resources to rebuild itself, to restore itself. Human bodies have a wonderful process going from the moment of conception to the moment of death, and that's called cell regeneration. Every cell in the human body lives a fairly short life. It gets old, it gets worn out, and it gets shed off, it just dies. And the body gives birth to a new baby cell to replace that old one. So every organ, every system in our bodies is renewing itself all the time. You can't restore a sick cell in the body, and the body doesn't even attempt to do that. It just discards the sick cell and gives birth to a new baby to replace that cell. As long as the damaging element is removed in your body, so these new baby cells don't get damaged and destroyed immediately as soon as they are born, these baby cells will grow and build new liver for you, and new bones, and new brain, and new heart, and new lungs, new tissues, and heal itself that way.
Perfect. It's a beautiful symphony. Maybe, Dr.
It is a
Natasha,
symphony. Yeah.
yeah, maybe we could go a little bit into just giving a kind of a brief overview for any listeners who aren't really familiar with the gut and psychology syndrome, or gut and physiology, as the case may be, as to how the gut is really playing into this and how important it is.
Okay. Western science recently, very recently, in the last few years, got interested in the gut flora, started researching it. So there is a huge buzz going on about it in the scientific community and in the medical community. This research has been going on in other countries around the world, and I'm happy to say that I grew up in a country where the research was going on from 1920s.
Great.
Into gut flora. We studied about gut flora in the third year of our medical training. We had probiotics already to our disposal, which we prescribed. There were liquids and ampules that people had to break an ampule and drink the liquid. And there were various preparations that people could take. So I was very familiar with that. Now recent research has discovered that 90% of all cells in the human body are the microbes living in your digestive system, your gut flora. 90%. So your body is only 10%. It's a shell, a habitat for this mass of microbes that live inside your digestive system. And we ignore them at our peril because they're 90% of us. There are and human beings for millennia had a very balanced community of microbes living in their digestive system with great diversity. Trillions of different species of microbes. There are bacteria there, there are viruses, there are fungi, there are protozoa, there are flukes, worms, archaea, and all sorts of other creatures. They're all absolutely necessary. It is a community in there. They all support each other, they all plant each other, harvest each other, eat each other, control each other, support each other. And they all contribute to your health, to your whole body, pretty much. Because this mass of microbes, first of all, they digest the food that comes along appropriately for you. If they are damaged or the diversity is gone because you've taken too many antibiotics or something overgrew there as a result of these antibiotics and out of control, out of balance, then you can't digest your food. We cannot digest our food properly without well-functioning gut flora. We cannot absorb our food properly. So we develop multiple nutritional deficiencies. On top of that, our gut flora synthesizes, manufactures a whole host of nutrients for us, which we generally supposed to get from the gut flora. That's the whole spectrum of B vitamins. B1, B2, B3, B5, B12, B6, all the other B vitamins, biotin, vitamin K2, many other nutrients and substances are supplied to us by the gut flora all the time. And the first thing that happens to any person who damaged their gut flora, after a good course of antibiotics, for example, then the person becomes pale and pasty. They develop anemia. Because in order to have healthy blood, we have to have the full spectrum of B vitamins available to the body. And no matter what we do with this person, we can give them supplements in high dose, we can feed them liver on a daily basis, which is the richest source of B vitamins, richest food source of B vitamins. They continue being pale and pasty until we restore the person's gut flora. As soon as that gut flora starts providing the proper form, biochemical form of these vitamins, the person starts thriving, the energy comes back, the stamina comes back, and the rosy cheeks come back. The anemia goes away. They manufacture that. They protect us from anything toxic that we swallow with drink and food. Anything, absolutely anything, chemicals, pesticides, anything, you name it. But as soon as the gut flora is damaged, you're not protected from these things. These things absorb and they go into the body and they damage. Worse than that, when the gut flora is abnormal, when it's damaged, the pathogens that overgrow in there, other microbes that overgrow in there, damage the integrity of the gut wall. The gut wall becomes porous, leaky, holes develop in the gut wall. So foods don't get the chance to be digested properly before they absorb. They absorb in an improper, maldigested form. And then, of course, the immune system finds them there in the bloodstream, looks at them and says, "You're not food. I don't recognize you as food," and attacks them, attacks these substances. And that's the basis for autoimmunity, for autoimmune disease, because all the proteins that your body is made from, your food is made from similar proteins, very similar, particularly animal foods. When these proteins in your meat or your eggs or your fish or milk haven't had a chance to be digested properly before they absorb, your immune system will develop antibodies against those bits of protein that were not digested. And then those antibodies will find similar proteins in your own body and attack them. And you start getting rheumatoid arthritis or lupus or multiple sclerosis or asthma or eczema or anything else, any other autoimmune condition in the body. And of course, inflammation rises because the immune system tries to deal with that situation. On top of that, the pathogens that overgrow in the gut flora consume the food that comes along, convert it into thousands of very toxic chemicals, downright poisonous. These poisons absorb into the bloodstream and lymph through the damaged gut wall and go all over the body. Wherever this toxic river gets to, it causes disease. If this river of toxicity coming from your digestive system hits your brain, you will develop mental illness. In any combination of symptoms, if that bunch of symptoms fits into a diagnostic box, you'll be given a diagnosis. If it doesn't fit into any diagnostic box, then psychiatrist might take longer to give you a diagnosis or put you just in the basket of schizophrenia or something else like that. Depression, all the mood disorders, sleep problems, problems with memory, problems with learning. If this situation develops in a small child, the child will develop a learning disability. What happens in autism? I'm absolutely convinced that almost 100% of autistic children today are born with a perfectly normal brain. These were perfectly normal babies when they were born. But what happens to these babies? They acquire abnormal gut flora from day one of their lives. I'll talk about it, where it comes from in a minute. And their digestive system gets damaged, and instead of being a source of nourishment, their digestive system becomes a major source of toxicity. A river of toxins flows from the gut into the blood and then gets into the brain of the baby and clogs the brain with toxicity. How do babies learn? How do little children learn? Toddlers. They use their sensory organs to collect information from the environment. They listen to everything, they look at everybody, they touch everything, they take everything in their mouth. What are they doing? They're using listening, vision, tactile sensitivity in their hands, taste buds, smell receptors in their nose to collect information from the environment. And then these organs, the sensory organs, pass that information to the brain to be processed. And from that processing, the baby learns that this is mommy, this is daddy, I can trust them, this is a toy, I play with it like this, I don't throw it, I don't destroy it, I don't line it up senselessly. This is food, I eat it, these are other children, I copy them. But if the baby's brain is clogged with toxicity, that information coming from the sensory organs, from hearing, vision, tactile sensitivity, and so on, turns into a noise, into a mush in the child's brain. And from this noise, this mush, the baby cannot learn anything useful. They cannot learn. That's why autistic children very often don't know that this is their mommy and this is their daddy. Any human being around is the same for them. They don't know what to do with toys. They don't know what to do with food. They don't know how to copy other children or what to do with other children. Instead, the brain develops surviving procedures, like a screensaver on your computer screen, where the brain develops repetitive movements, repetitive routines, which manifest themselves as a self-stimulation, as a stim in a child. So these children would do repetitive movements, vocalizations, or lining up the toys, or jigging about on tiptoes in circles for days, and other sort of things. This is like a screensaver on your computer for the brain not to die completely, to just stay alive, to tick on. While the brain is so toxic, so intoxicated, the child cannot function and cannot learn anything useful. The younger the child is when we start the GAPS nutritional protocol, because what the GAPS nutritional protocol will do, it will normalize the gut flora, it will drive out the pathogens, reestablish the beneficial flora, and it will heal and seal the gut wall. It will seal all those holes in the gut wall. So that toxic river coming from the gut into the blood stops. Once it stops, the body has a chance to clean up, because every organ in your body has a great ability to clean itself. They're doing it all the time, including the brain. The brain has a wonderful ability to cleanse itself.
Yes.
So the brain, as soon as that river stops coming, the brain just removes all the toxins and your child will wake up. And from that moment on, the child is teachable, is able to learn. They start learning from that moment on. The younger is the child when that moment happens, the quicker they recover and the quicker they catch up with other peers of the same age.
Mm-hmm.
The older the child is, the more they fall behind their peers, because other 3, 4, 5-year-olds are not standing still. They're developing.
Mm-hmm.
Developing very rapidly, very fast. So for your little autistic 3-year-old, he needs to run, literally, to catch up with them in the knowledge, to catch up on all the 3 years of missed development while the brain was stuck in that toxic fog.
Right.
So the younger the child is when we start. Many parents take their children, they know something's wrong. They take their children to pediatricians, and if the mixture of symptoms that the child has doesn't fit into any diagnostic box, then pediatricians will procrastinate. They will tell you, well, we'll observe, bring the child for observation. 6 months later, maybe 6 months later again, and precious time is being wasted when the child could have been helped. Don't wait for diagnostic labels, because diagnostic labels don't mean anything. They're not going to help your child. Getting a diagnosis will provide no help whatsoever for you or your child. You know something's wrong with your child. Start the diet immediately, because the younger the child is, the quicker they recover and the more fully they recover. And in a few weeks' time, if it's a 2-year-old or a 16-month or 19-month-year-old, and you put them on the GAPS nutritional protocol, a few weeks, the child's developing, and there is no need for going to pediatricians anymore or getting any diagnosis. There will be no diagnosis. The child's developing, the child's taking off, and moving into the normality. But if it is a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, older, they were stuck in this toxic fog for a very long time. Bombardment of toxins for that long inflicts physical damage to the brain. Various areas of atrophy develop in the brain of these children. This child was born with a perfectly normal brain, perfectly nice, normal brain. But this bombardment of toxicity does cause physical damage. And also they've missed out on 6 years of development or 8 years of development. Catching up on that amount, a lot of catch up. So these children will recover to a degree, but they may not recover fully. They will still lag behind, because it depends how much effort you are prepared to put into the child academically, how much teaching you are prepared to do for your child. In my experience, applied behavior analysis, or ABA program, is the most effective for autistic children. That's autism. If the mixture of toxins coming out of the gut and hitting the child's brain is different, or not so heavy, maybe, the child may not fit into the diagnostic box of autism, but might be diagnosed with ADHD, or ADD, or dyslexia, dyspraxia, or positional defiant disorder, maybe schizophrenia, maybe pervasive developmentalism, maybe some other diagnostic label. There are many of them.
Yes.
None of them really help your child, and none of them really mean anything. The real disorder underneath all those labels is GAPS. And every human being, being an individual, being a unique human being, will manifest with a unique mixture of symptoms. And in your particular child, that bunch of symptoms may fit into some diagnostic label or may not fit. Your child may have a bit of autism, a bit of ADHD, a bit of this, a bit of that, and none of it fits into any diagnostic label neatly. Right. Just start the program, and in a few weeks' time, there will be no need for the diagnosis.
Yeah, and I think that's a really, really important point, because I know, having dug into some statistics in North America, we have, one out of every 2 children is diagnosed with some sort of chronic illness. And, there's a bunch of kids that are sort of flying under the radar, as you say, that don't get that diagnosis. There's just, something not quite right. They're sort of generally unwell, and we see these kids with the big bags under their eyes, and they look sort of malnourished, and I really like what you're saying in terms of don't wait to get some sort of specific diagnosis, because the power is in starting something like a GAPS protocol as soon as you can, rather than waiting for that box to be ticked, because it really doesn't mean much.
It doesn't mean, and it's not going to provide you with any help whatsoever.
Right.
Because the medical profession has no idea what causes these disorders and will not provide you any meaningful help.
Yes.
They can put your child on a mixture of drugs, which will control this symptom or that symptom, but give you lots of side effects.
Yep.
So your child will have other symptoms, and it will not address the root cause of the disorder.
Exactly.
Because the doctors have no idea what the root cause of the disorder is. Psychiatrists have no idea. I have trained quite a few psychiatrists, but these are younger psychiatrists.
Yep.
So hopefully by the time the old dinosaurs retire, who are in charge in the psychiatry now, and the younger generations will move in, they will bring in that knowledge into the medical profession. But history shows that it takes on average 50 years for the medical profession to actually move on from the old dogma and the old ideas. At the moment, the medical profession has no idea what causes these disorders, and they have no idea how to help you. And they will waste an awful lot of time for you and your child doing tests, doing observation, doing diagnostic labeling, and so on.
This is our
So
experience.
let's come back to the...
If I just might, for just
so
one
let's
sec,
come-
just taking it back from the psychiatric disorders as well. My son has an autoimmune condition, and in Canada we have long queues to see specialists. So we waited for a year to get in to see the pediatric dermatologist for official diagnosis. Which in the meantime I already had him on a GAPS diet. But, you know, it's exactly the same thing when we're talking about autoimmune. Still, the sort of Western medical approach, it doesn't have a lot to offer in terms of treatment options. So, yeah, take action, guys. Take action, parents. And sorry, Dr. Natasha, I interrupted you for that.
That's okay. That's a very, very good point. Absolutely. Because all the doctors can do, they can just make you a little bit more comfortable with their drugs, because it's all symptomatic. But they have no idea what the root cause is. They will not be able to address it. There is nothing curative they can offer you. That is why, because they can't offer anything, they believe that these conditions are incurable.
Yes.
Once you accept their opinion and make it your belief, that's it. You stop the healing in your body. You're giving your body command. Now you've got an incurable disease, body. And the body will listen to that and obey. If you believe you've got an incurable disease, you make this disease incurable for yourself.
And if we believe
but
it,
if you
we
don't
pass
do
that
that-
on to our kids.
Exactly, we pass that to our children. Absolutely, parents pass their beliefs to their children. So, human body can heal anything, absolutely anything. There are miraculous stories around, and I have seen enough miracles to be absolutely sure about what I'm saying to you. Human body can heal anything. You just need to remove the damaging factors, identify them, and give the body resources. And GAPS diet is one of those resources. What we do, these patients basically are digestive disorders, whether it is a multiple sclerosis or a migraine or schizophrenia or autism or rheumatoid arthritis or skin disease like alopecia, for example, or lichen, sclerotic lichen or something else. These are all digestive disorders in their essence. We have to start healing from the digestive system because that's where 90% of you is sitting. And those microbes in there, don't underestimate them, because they produce hormones. It is an endocrine organ sitting right there inside your digestive system. And these hormones interfere in your hormonal balance in your body. And if their hormonal balance is abnormal, they will make sure that your hormonal balance is abnormal. Your thyroid function will be low. Your adrenals will be exhausted. Your sex hormones will be all over the place. All other hormones will be all over the place. And hormones are very powerful chemicals. Each hormone, if it's abnormal, can produce hundreds of symptoms in the body, which often look unconnected to your medical doctor. On top of that, these microbes in your gut produce neurotransmitters. These are chemicals which affect your brain. And if the gut flora is abnormal, your neurotransmitter balance will be abnormal. And that will produce all sorts of moods, all sorts of behaviors, all sorts of aggression and irrational behaviors and all sorts of inappropriate things all the way to the psychiatric illness, all the way to psychosis, another depression, and other psychiatric problems in there. And they produce huge amounts of toxins, and they make sure they control the food intake.
Yes.
Not you. Because, you can eat the best quality food in the world. If you can't digest it and can't absorb it, this wonderful food will do you no good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's those bugs inside your digestive system who control the digestion and the absorption of food. They control how much you benefit from your food or don't benefit from your food. They really very much, the more we study them, the more we realize them, they're actually very much in charge of our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, our circadian rhythm, and our physical state and our well-being on every level.
It's amazing.
So we have to respect them, and we have to look after them. The only way to look after them is through the tools that Mother Nature gave us. Because Mother Nature took some 4 billion years to design the human body, and it thought through every biochemical process, every little step is carefully designed and carefully thought through. Our science has only existed on this planet for a few decades. We are cavemen compared to what Mother Nature knows, what your body knows.
Mm-hmm.
Our science not only doesn't know the vast majority of that knowledge, but little knowledge is actually more harmful than no knowledge at all.
Mm-hmm.
They will interfere.
Mm-hmm.
They will interfere, and they will cause more damage than good. So the only way to really heal your body and recover is to work with Mother Nature and use the Mother Nature's tools. And the most powerful tool that affects human health is food that we eat. There is nothing in this world more powerful in its effect on your health, on your daily well-being, than what you put in your mouth. We eat at least 3 times a day. Many people eat more often than that. And every morsel of food you put into your mouth changes everything in your body. Your metabolism, your autonomic system balance, the balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic, your electrolytes, your pH, everything changes in the body. And that will affect your nervous system, your mood, your behavior, your digestion. Every possible organ, every possible cell in the body will be affected. Mm-hmm. So when we change the diet, we change everything in the body. And the diet's effects on the human body is absolutely miraculous and immediate. Absolutely immediate. So what we do with the GAPS diet, GAPS Nutritional Protocol is a program. It has 3 parts to it. The most important part is the diet, the GAPS diet, because we're dealing with a digestive disorder, and what you fill your digestive system with has a direct effect on its well-being.
Yes.
The second part are supplements. We use just a minimal number of supplements, and really these supplements are foods that we use, because you don't want to put a lot of effort into the diet and then spoil the whole thing with a pill.
Yes.
The supplement business, supplement market is huge. Multi-billion, and every manufacturer will tell you that their supplement is the best and absolutely essential, and everybody should take it every day for the rest of their lives. No, we're supposed to get our nutrition from food, not from pills. So the number of supplements that we use in the GAPS Nutritional Protocol is absolutely minimal, and eventually people finish up without supplements altogether, without any pills. Only in the initial stages, we use it individually to give the human body a hand here and there when we need to. And the third part is detoxification and reducing the toxic load on the human body. We live in a world which is increasingly polluting our bodies. Majority of people in the Western world certainly have very polluted bodies, very, very polluted, because our chemical industry has been very successful in developing chemicals that don't exist in nature. Up to date, they developed some 8,000 chemicals that do not exist in nature, which means your body has no tools of dealing with that chemical. So these chemicals just get stored in your body. Majority of them store in high-fat tissues, either in your fat, in the body, or in high-fat organs, such as the brain, or the bone marrow, or your endocrine organs and other high-fat tissues. Your brain is a very high-fat tissue. That is why we have mental illness, because people are storing mercury and lead and arsenic and nickel and other heavy metals and aluminium, which is a light metal but very toxic,
yes,
in their brains and their bone marrow. During pregnancy, a woman's body unloads toxins into the fetus. It sounds unfair and sounds very cruel, but that's the way Mother Nature designed a woman's body. It uses pregnancy as a chance to clean up by dumping all the stored toxicity into the fetus. We have in our modern world, the young girls are growing up from birth accumulating toxins, increasing amounts of chemicals through food with all the pesticides, herbicides, and other agricultural chemicals in it, through makeup, through hair dyes, through contraceptive pill, through all the medicines we take, through the junk food, and through other influences and all the personal care products that we use. They all absorb through skin, they accumulate in the body. And when the woman gets, and also women now have babies later and later in life. Yes. Majority of women now have their first child, they start their family in their 30s. That's the most common now practice. So of course by 30, a woman has accumulated a very considerable toxic load in her body. It is stored in various tissues in her body. On top of that, she might have amalgam fillings in her teeth, leaching mercury all the time into her system. And when she gets pregnant, she dumps all of that into the fetus. We have, if that toxicity is enough to kill the baby, then the woman will have a miscarriage or will have a stillbirth. We have an epidemic of miscarriages. Many young ladies nowadays have 1 to 3 miscarriages before they're able to produce a viable baby. Miscarriage is not a happy event, but it allows the woman's body to clean up on that fetus. So the next pregnancy will be much cleaner and she will be able to produce a cleaner body for her baby. So the following baby will be much cleaner, will be born with a better constitution, smaller toxic load. But if the woman doesn't have enough toxicity to actually kill the fetus, then she produces a child which has a very high toxic load. And these children have poor constitution and very prone to physical and mental illness. They either become autistic or develop another learning disability, or they develop diabetes type 1, or rheumatoid arthritis juvenile, or something else very, very severe, or FPIES, which is a disastrous situation, and many, many other illnesses that plague our babies nowadays. And what I see is that every year, the babies that are born, they are born that little bit more damaged and with a higher toxic load and with a worse constitution than babies who were born the previous year. And every year the situation gets deeper and deeper and worse. And the proportion of the babies that are born that are damaged is growing every single year. Because the epidemic of gaps that started after the Second World War from the discovery of antibiotics is getting deeper. And it's the underlying cause of all these other epidemics in our children. Epidemics of allergies, the eczemas, the asthma, the diabetes type 1, other autoimmune illnesses, and learning disabilities in children. Because apart from her toxic load during pregnancy, the mother also passes her gut flora to her baby at the moment of birth.
Yes.
The father, because the mother has a rich flora in her vagina, when the baby goes through the birth canal, during the moment of birth, the baby swallows mouthfuls of microbes that live in the mother's birth canal. The flora of in the vagina, the birth canal, comes from the bowel. So if the woman has got abnormal gut flora, she will have abnormal flora in her birth canal, and that is what she's passing to her baby at the moment of birth. The fathers are not exempt because the fathers have got a rich flora in their groin, which is coming out of the father's bowel. So he's gut flora, and he shares that flora with the mother on a regular basis. So both parents pass their gut flora to their baby at the moment of birth. What we have generations of parents whose gut flora is getting more and more damaged. Deeper and deeper damage is happening in generations to the gut flora of the parents, and that's what they're passing to their children, plus the heavier and heavier toxic load that the children are getting from their parents. That is why our children are getting sicker and sicker every year. The epidemic of autism is a disaster. It is growing every year. It's been predicted now, the The statisticians, the scientists have already predicted, but in the 2020s, in the English-speaking countries, 1 in 2 children will be diagnosed with autism.
Amazing.
Half.
Not good.
And it's not good, and it's not going to stop there. It'll continue growing. So the generation of our children who have grown up now, maybe even us, if we live long enough, we will see when every child pretty much in the English-speaking world will be autistic. And other European countries are following pretty close behind English-speaking countries, and then the rest of the world is following. They have statistics which are not so severe, but they're growing, all of these statistics. And the underlying epidemic of all these disorders is gaps, because before I talk about the health of the child in my clinic, I talk first about the health of the parents and the health of the grandparents. And what I see that a grandmother after the Second World War had a few courses of antibiotics which have damaged her gut flora slightly. So she passed that slightly damaged gut flora to her daughter, who was born in the middle somewhere of the 20th century. And so the daughter acquired that abnormal gut flora from her mother. And then she grew up in the modern world, where she had many courses of antibiotics throughout her childhood for every cough and sneeze. And then junk food came in, and breastfeeding went out of fashion. So many of these young ladies were not breastfed as babies. They had formula feeding. Formula-fed babies develop completely different gut flora to the breastfed babies. It's very damaged in these children. And then at the age of 14, 15, she's been put on contraceptive pills. And the contraceptive pill has a devastating effect on the gut flora. And by the time the woman is ready to start her family, she's been taking that pill for quite a few years. So when she is ready to have her first child, her gut flora is seriously damaged. And that is what she's passing to her baby. And with every generation, that situation is getting worse and worse. Yeah. And that's why we have epidemics of autism, an epidemic of ADHD, an epidemic of diabetes type 1. That's another disaster. When I started practicing as a medical doctor in the 90s, we were diagnosing, the youngest people we were diagnosing with diabetes type 1 were 18-year-olds, maybe 16. Now we're diagnosing babies, a few weeks old, with diabetes type 1. Babies. And this epidemic is growing, and these babies are put on injections of insulin for the rest of their lives, these babies, because they're so damaged. And all other diseases, all other chronic conditions are growing.
Yeah, it is a scary situation that we're living in, and I think, even more important that we as parents start to recognize this and start to take action where we can, and that's, as parents, we have a great degree of control over what our kids put in their mouths, right? And that's the most powerful thing that we can do for them, as you say, and it's so simple and non-invasive and not risky and all of those things. It seems like it's a no-brainer to me to go that route, but
absolutely, because we have to eat anyway.
Yeah,
you have to feed your child anyway. You have to cook for your child anyway. So why not cook wholesome, nutrient-dense, proper foods, which instead of damaging your child will be actually healing your child?
Them. Yeah.
Because the parents don't put much effort into food in the modern world. They just give their child whatever's convenient for them or whatever's is there available without putting much thought into it. And the food is the most powerful influence on the health of your child. You are damaging your child. If you're not putting any conscious effort into the food, you are damaging your child with every mouthful of food you're giving your child. So it is essential for parents to be educated in that area. Absolutely. And also we have to understand that every good change in this world happens from grassroots.
Yes.
No good change comes from the top. Never, ever. The governments will not be able to deal with this situation. In fact, they're burying their heads in the sand and not even wanting to look in that direction because it's too scary. It is far too scary for them to even contemplate how many autistic children we already have, and that every year these numbers are growing. They have no resources to look after these disabled people, and they live a full life. And that's the whole family's life is gone. If you get an autistic child, you're going to spend the rest of your life looking after this individual, and then other children in your family will finish up looking after their disabled brother or
Siblings.
sister,
Mm-hmm.
their sibling. So the whole family's life will be plagued by that situation, controlled by that situation.
Mm-hmm.
By changing the food in your family, by starting to cook, women must go back to the kitchen and start cooking, particularly in the English-speaking world.
Yes.
By doing that, you're taking control back into your hands. You're making sure that your children are healthy, and you're making sure that you prevent all sorts of illnesses if you don't have them in your family, and you can reverse vast majority of them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there is hope. So, Dr. Natasha, we are really quickly coming up on time, and I know you're a very busy woman, so I want to be very respectful of your time. I do have a couple of questions that came in from some of our listeners when I let them know that I would have you on the show. Would you mind if I shoot a couple of questions out to you before we finish up?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you did touch a little bit on the detoxification. So maybe you could just give a brief little overview about how you approach that in the GAPS approach.
The first thing we do, we remove all toxicity from the life of the child or the adult. Mm-hmm. That means all personal care products need to be thrown away. Mm-hmm. Shampoos, bubble baths, shower gels, makeup, hair dyes, the lot. Because your skin is not a barrier, it is a sponge. Mm-hmm. It absorbs everything you put on it, and it absorbs it in seconds. Mm-hmm. If you put the toxin into your food, into your mouth, before it finishes up in your bloodstream, it first has to go through the liver, and the liver will destroy most of it. It will protect you. Mm-hmm. But if you apply that toxin on the skin, it's in your bloodstream in seconds, and it bypasses the liver. You're accumulating these things. It is known, for example, that the cancerous tissue in breasts of women with breast cancer is full of aluminium. And where does that aluminium come from? From deodorants, which are applied into the armpits of the woman.
Yeah.
They're a major cause of our epidemic of breast cancer. Deodorants.
Yep.
Simple. Our chemical industry is self-regulating, which means it's not regulated.
Yep. Exactly.
And of course it will give you any marketing you would like to hear. So if you can't, the rule is for GAPS people, if you cannot eat it, you cannot apply it to your skin. Mm-hmm. Only edible, clean, organic things are applied to your skin. We have a whole list of recipes in the GAPS nutritional protocol, how to wash your hair, how to brush your teeth, what moisturizers to use, the whole sort of lot there. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing that has to happen. You have to clean up your house. Remove all the cleaning chemicals, dishwasher detergents, your laundry detergents, paints, and so on, because that is a huge load on your detoxification system. Human body has a system which is like a cleaner in the body. It has its headquarters in the liver and departments in every cell. It works very hard. It cleans your blood all the time. It keeps on top of all this toxicity. But in a GAPS person, where there's a river of toxicity flowing from the gut, it hits the liver first, that river, and that headquarters of the cleansing department detox system get broken down. And once your detox system is broken down, toxins just store in your body. They're not dealt with appropriately. They just store, and they will find their own sweet spot in your organs, in your tissues in the body where they want to be stored. And that is a major mechanism of autoimmunity in the body. Because, for example, if a molecule of mercury got into your body, it will target your brain. It will go into the brain, and it likes to attach itself to the protein in your myelin sheath. Mm-hmm. That's the insulation around all your nerve fibers and nerve cells in the brain, myelin. Once that protein has got that molecule of mercury attached to it, it changes its three-dimensional structure. Your immune system goes around the body all the time, surveying it. It finds this changed molecule with the mercury sticking out there, looks at it and says, "You're not mine. I don't recognize you. You must be some virus that got in." And it attacks your own myelin. And voila, you have multiple sclerosis. Mm-hmm. Because of that molecule of mercury that got into your body and changed the structure of the protein in your myelin. Your immune system starts developing antibodies against your myelin, and you get multiple sclerosis, or you get something else. That is a major factor. So that's what we need to do in all of us, because we live in an increasingly polluted world.
Yes.
Couples who want to conceive, who want to have a baby, Nowadays, we cannot do it haphazardly. We cannot, because young people nowadays, their bodies are full of chemicals, full of pollution, full of toxicity. Before you even think about having a child, they need to spend at least a year cleaning themselves up, detoxifying the mother and the father, the young couple. Only then they can conceive, they can try to conceive. If they don't want to have an autistic child, or a child with diabetes type 1 or something else, some other disaster.
We need to start planning in advance. So how about I get a lot of questions from people about heavy metal toxicity and the chelation protocols that are used, and I know you have a bit of a different approach to that, and I'd like for listeners to hear that.
Absolutely, I do not support chelation. I have seen far too many children who regressed severely after chelating procedures, and it's far more difficult to help these children after that. It's like throwing them deep into a deep crevice in the middle of a glacier, and then you have to climb them up to the zero level and then start from that level. We have a detox system, as I say. In these children, in every autistic child, their detox system is broken down. It is not working. So what I tell the parents, every family with autistic child come to me with a wad of tests that they've done.
Yes.
And invariably there are tests there for toxic metals, and they say, well, what are we going to do about these metals? I tell these families, we do nothing about them right now. We just work on healing the gut and restoring the child's own detox system. Once that system gets off the floor and starts working, it has ways of removing mercury, aluminium, and other toxins out of the body that our science hasn't even discovered yet. Yes. We haven't even dreamt of them yet. It is a very powerful system. What I tell them, you do the protocol, and in about 8 months to a year, we will retest. And I would tell you that in about 85% of these families, when we retest a year down the road, the mercury is gone.
Wow.
Lead is gone. It's not there anymore, because the child's own detox system switched on and cleaned it out, removed it. And only in children and adults in whom it still remains, there is still a heavy load there, then we do something else. Then we can think about some natural methods of chelating these metals. The GAPS nutritional protocol itself incorporates many foods and juices, which are actually powerful chelators in themselves, not only restoring the detox system. So the fact that we're not doing mainstream chelation doesn't mean we're not chelating. We're doing it the nature's way.
Exactly. I love it. I think maybe we'll do one last question, and this is a big question that I get a lot, and I don't know how you feel about tackling it, but I did get a question about your opinion on vaccines and their role in the chronic illnesses in our kids.
When vaccines were invented more than 100 years ago, they were invented by good people who really wanted to do something good for humanity. I'm afraid today that motivation is gone completely. Vaccination is a multi-billion trillion business, and there is a huge push for more profit every year, so more and more vaccinations. Children by the age of 4 in the Western countries now receive an unacceptable number of injections and vaccinations. That is one factor. Another factor is that the way Mother Nature designed us, it put a lymphoid tissue, part of our immune system called lymphoid tissue, underneath our skin and every mucous membrane. And it is that tissue that is designed to meet the virus first. It must meet it first. How do we get a measles virus or a chickenpox virus? Somebody sneezes next to us, we breathe that air, so the virus gets into our nose, into our mouth, and meets the lymphoid tissue in the mucous membranes. The lymphoid tissue then learns about that virus the right way, the way Mother Nature designed it, passes that information to the rest of the lymphoid tissue all over the body, and that happens literally very fast. It's quite amazing. The lymphoid tissue in your gut will know all the properties of that virus in seconds, as soon as the virus is in your mouth. And it's already working on how to meet that virus and what to do with it. And part of developing proper immunity against the virus is that it needs to first meet the lymphoid tissue in the body. What are we doing with the vaccinations? We bypassing the lymphoid tissue, we're injecting it directly into the blood, into the tissues of the body. We stick the needle, bypassing the lymphoid tissue, bypassing all of that barrier, all those elements. Vaccinations do not give you proper immunity. First of all, pharmaceutical industry is not allowed to patent natural viruses, natural bacteria. They have to genetically modify them, then they can pronounce them as proprietary something or other, and they can patent them. Mm-hmm. So the virus that is in the vaccine is a creature that does not exist in nature. It is a genetically modified Frankenstein, which comes into the body, and it cannot create a real immunity, and it does not. Whenever we have outbreaks of measles nowadays, every person who got it has been fully vaccinated. Mm-hmm. They are not unvaccinated people. Unvaccinated people actually don't get these infections. Also, these infections have been given to us by Mother Nature for a reason. They are very important to mature the baby's immune system, because babies are born with an immature immune system. It's an immune system that needs education, and every infection, childhood infection, is a major lesson for the immune system. People who did have measles and who did have all these infections in their childhood, they virtually never in their life develop allergies or autoimmunity, because their immune system has been properly educated, mm-hmm. Properly trained, properly matured in these people. Where children who are vaccinated do not develop proper immunity. The decisive factor, the scaremongering that goes on amongst the mainstream with vaccinations, is that you can get complications from the disease itself.
Right.
The only children who get complications from measles, mumps, rubella, or anything else are children who are malnourished, who have deficiencies in fat-soluble vitamins and protein. These are the most important elements for the immune system to be strong and healthy and be able to deal with the virus. Fat-soluble, because we live in a world of fat phobia, and even our babies and children are recommended to be on a low-fat diet, these children are deficient in vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin K, and vitamin E. They're deficient in protein, and they're deficient in healthy fats, which come only from animal foods. So, if a child is on a proper diet, on a proper food, homemade soups and stews, eating plenty of butter, plenty of eggs, plenty of fatty meat, then the child will have plenty of those fat-soluble vitamins, healing fats, and protein. The child will sail through that measles and come out the other end healthier and stronger. Mm-hmm. These infections are essential for our children to go through. They are not optional. They're essential to mature their immune system and to create a proper, healthy body, properly fitted to live in this world and survive in this world. So if I had children today, I will not vaccinate them.
Okay. Thank you for answering that question. That's a big one to tackle, and you did it very well in a very nice brief summary of it. And I thank you for that. And just as a quick summing up here, what's one last very important thing that you want to make sure parents take away or leave with today?
What I tell the parents in my clinic: don't give away your child to the medical profession. Don't abdicate the God-given duty and responsibility that you have, because this child is trusting you completely. This child is within your hands, in your hands, and it is your duty to protect this child and look after this child. If you give your power away, this power, God-given power, to the doctors or anybody else in the world, then your child would become a statistic. Mm-hmm. Keep that power firmly in your own hands, and the number one thing that you must do is start feeding your child properly. Parents in the Western world do not feed themselves properly and do not feed their children properly. It is haphazard. They do not even pay attention to what they're doing. And that is the number one cause of all this misery that Western families are going through. And I will tell you that I don't believe in hopeless situations. I believe that in every situation there is an answer. There is an answer, there is a way. And if your doctor doesn't have an answer because your doctor doesn't know, then it doesn't mean that the answer doesn't exist elsewhere. Keep looking and trust the Mother Nature.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you. And I so appreciate your time today. And wish you very well on the new book coming out. We all look forward to it. And if anybody would like to purchase a copy of the GAPS book at the moment, how can they go about doing that?
Well, the first GAPS book, Gut and Psychology Syndrome, is available everywhere.
Is it on Amazon?
It's on Amazon.
It is on now, okay.
That's right. It is on Amazon. It is sold all over the world.
Okay.
It's been translated into 15 languages. So it is available in many, many countries. I would like also to add that in my clinic, I have many teenagers, late teenagers, young people who get very ill after following vegetarian or vegan lifestyles. That is a fashion nowadays.
Fashion. Yep.
Big fashion all over the world. And these youngsters get into trouble because they have no idea what they're doing. So having looked into that area, I have written another book. The book is just coming out. It is called Vegetarianism Explained. I'm sure that many listeners of your programs will have that idea that perhaps the plant-based diet is the best way to go ahead. Please read that book, and if you meet any person who is contemplating plant-based lifestyle, please give them that book to read, so they are informed. It's called Vegetarianism Explained: Making an Informed Decision.
Great. And it's not out yet, but it's due out soon. Is that right?
It's coming out. It's just being printed.
Okay, that is great. Awesome. Well, I will look forward to that, and maybe we could do a follow-up interview once the book is out, and we could talk a little bit about that as well, if you're into that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Natasha, and thanks everybody for tuning in today, and I look forward to talking to you again very soon.
Thank you for listening to Kids Health Revolution Radio. Before you go, take a minute to subscribe to the show and to become a free member of the Kids Health Revolution community. Lots of great people, information, and bonuses waiting for you at www.kidshealthrevolution.com. The information on this show is for information and educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, or otherwise replace medical advice.